Hello there, and welcome to our latest episode of Hex Talks. In our latest episode, I am proud to introduce you to the remarkable screen actress Lee Purcell, a woman of incredible talent whose accomplished career has featured many astonishing artistic collaborations with such legendary artists as Nicolas Cage, Jon Voight, Chadwick Boseman, Malcolm McDowell, Sidney Poitier, Orson Welles, Wes Craven, among many, many others. Lee has the unique distinction of having worked with father-son duos Kirk and Michael Douglas, and Beau and Lloyd Bridges. From the New Hollywood era to the present day, Lee Purcell has made powerful and memorable contributions to many extraordinary films. For her role in Adam at 6 A.M., Lee was handpicked out of over 500 actresses by Hollywood legendary movie star producer Steve McQueen to star alongside Michael Douglas. In cult horror, Lee starred in Summer of Fear, directed by horror icon Wes Craven, where Lee stunned audiences with a terrifying portrayal of possession. Her tireless work ethic and determination have seen her perform in countless films, and her achievements have earned her enormous respect within the industry, reflected by her key position at the SAG-AFTRA Actors Union and a long-time active member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. In every respect, Lee Purcell is a powerful and compassionate professional whose zest for life serves as an inspiration for aspiring and current actors today. With a career that has blossomed across the genres, from sci-fi to westerns, to horror, drama, and comedy. I am delighted to introduce you all to the wonderful Lee Purcell. Hello there, Lee, and thank you so much for visiting us today at Hex Talks. It is a tremendous honour to have an artist of your calibre talking to humble me.
Okay, yeah, like you're humble. Okay, we'll pretend that's true. Of course, and me too. Thanks for having me on, Laurie. It's really so great to see you again. Really, really good.
So from the epic introduction that you've already had in this video, folks will have an idea that you are an extraordinary artist who has accomplished so many projects and worked with so many wonderful people. Of course, you being the most wonderful of them all.
And yourself as one of the people I have had the great pleasure of working with.
Thank you very much. I like to pride myself on the prospect of being the most mediocre collaborator you've had in your glorious career. So if I can ask you...
No, you're not. Trust me.
I'll try harder.
You're definitely not mediocre.
Can I ask, for a lot of the folks that will be watching this, a lot of them are aspiring actors and artists.
Yes.
For yourself, how did you get into acting? And I know acting is only one string in your bow because I know you're directing, you produce, but how did it all begin?
Well, that is a loaded question, and I'll give you my loaded answer. So I started doing television, regional television, a very amateur stuff at 5, and it was a strange little show in the Mid-South of the United States, and it was called, so imaginatively, the Mid-South Talent Show. And so I went on there. Now I'd already started, because we moved a lot when I was a child. I'd already had a modeling career in Dallas, Texas, at the Neiman Marcus flagship store. I don't know if you know that store, but it's like Harrods. It's like fabulous.
By Neiman Marcus, eh?
Yeah, 3. I was 3. I think my parents figured that's enough of your lounging around. Get out there and earn a living, right? So, my mother somehow I got discovered walking down the street with my mother, and I got hired, and I was a runway toddler. That's what I did at 3. And I could take direction. So I was in demand for that. And started dance lessons also at 3. And later became a professional dancer. But the TV, I just kind of fell into things, right? But I think that I have a belief about this, a philosophy, that I think people fall into things that they really want to do. So even at an extremely young age. And when I hear people say, oh, well, I never meant to be a painter. I don't know. I just picked up a paintbrush and yeah, you did. You just didn't know you did. You didn't know you wanted to be, a jazz pianist, but yeah, you did. And so I think people, this is my whole philosophical viewpoint here, but I think that people come into life with certain innate desires and also innate talents. And I think that people stumble upon the opportunity, so to speak. And so when I was 5 and somehow, and I don't even know how, I ended up on this TV show. By this time we were living in a different place. And so this show was in Memphis, Tennessee, which is a large city for that part of the country. And somehow I got on this show and I did this show for about maybe, I'm going to say 8 years, on and off, right? Because it was a talent show and it was really very silly and very corny American phrase, I don't know what the equivalent would be. And I did different things. I sang, I danced, I read scenes, I read poetry, I did all kinds of different things. And if I had an idea, I would call them up and say, I have an idea. And now this was not, this was 88 miles from where we were living, I think, unless we were still on the naval base there. I can't remember. And I would call them up and say, I have an idea. And they say, come over and do it. And I would do this. And then, and sometimes they call me up and say, I remember one day they called me and said, do you know how to do a Mexican hat dance? And I said, yes, because I always said yes to everything. And I think that is a good policy for people who are young and just starting out. I don't mean yes to things that are bad, but I mean, yes, if somebody says, can you ride a horse? You say yes. And then you immediately go out and take horseback riding lessons with the best teacher you can find, right? So when they said, can you do a Mexican hat dance? And I said, yes. And I had no clue as to how to do a Mexican hat dance. And so there was no internet in those days. So it was a lot harder. You had to go to the library and you had to watch films or videos, well, films then. And so I learned how, and I went over and I did a Mexican hat dance and took a few friends with me. And we all did the Mexican hat dance. So that was how I began my amateur career. And I think it's really good to have an amateur career. Don't worry about am I getting paid or is this important? No, you just do it. And I think that's the way to go. That's what I did.
I mean, that's an incredible attitude, and I think that is absolutely. I can't agree more. To have that entrepreneurial mindset about the prospects of your career, but also it's incredible though that from such a young age you were creative and proficient in so many disciplines, from modeling, dancing, and all this kind of and improvising to meet the new creative demands of the talent show as
well. The Mexican hat dance, yes.
In terms of your emotional well-being then as well, and your artistic motivation, how did that feel? Because sometimes when all these opportunities come to you and you're at such a young age, it's hard to reconcile what your own desires are with that. Did you find that you very quickly were excited and wanted to keep doing this and do more of this, or were you sometimes in conflict?
No, it's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to be an artist, and whether a performing artist or a fine artist, because I was also later a photographer. I didn't get paid, like I said before, but it was just who I was. And I think a lot of people, artists and frustrated artists, are like that. You just want to create something that nobody's created before, and you just want to perform something. Maybe you perform something that a lot of people have performed, like, I don't like Macbeth, right? But you have your own take on it, so you want to bring your own characterization, to that. But then if you think something is too small, is too meaningless, then you're in the wrong place. Because I was really lucky in that I had a few mentors in my life, and two of them were when I was in school, coming through school, and we had finally stopped moving from state to state, town to town, and I had some really good mentors. And I think it's important to have mentors if you can, if you're lucky, if you seek them out or they seek you out. And they don't have to be formal mentors. They can just be somebody whose advice you respect, and somebody who says something to you that is meaningful and that sticks with you. I've had a few of those. One really big one, of course, but we'll talk about that later. But I had I was in the school band, of course, because I did everything that there was to do, and the band instructor, who only recently died in his 90s, and we're in touch all these years. He was amazing. He was one of my mentors, and he wanted to start a traveling troupe of a few people who had various skills, multi-skilled. So he came to me and he told me he wanted to do this and wanted me to be in the troupe. And so I was the only dancer. I was one of the singers. I was the clarinetist. I designed all my own costumes. I couldn't sew, still can't, but I knew how to sketch, sort of. And so we did this. I was 13 when we did that. And we traveled all over that part of the country, and we did fairs and carnivals and colleges and other schools and the women's clubs and whatever, that there was to do. And we did that. And I did that for, a couple of years, at least a couple of years. And so that was even more training. Again, I wasn't paid, but I didn't know what I was doing, but I was honing my craft. I just didn't know it. I was just doing it, and I was getting better at various things. And so I always tell people, you have, like, I want to go to Hollywood and make big movies. Like, okay, have you ever done a school play? And they're like, oh, yeah, you can start there. You can start in your scout troop, earning a merit badge by doing the theater badge, which there is. I put my son through it. And there's all kinds of ways that you can start out. And then you will also learn, is this really what I want to do? I mean, the opportunity is there. I have the heart to do it. Do I want to do this as a profession for my life? And I think it would help you. I think it would help people to kind of figure that out, because I was in school with people who were in the plays, and they became lawyers and doctors and school teachers and other professions. There were only a few that actually none, me, and then one other who couldn't do it for various reasons. But I think it's good. I think, if you want to be a filmmaker, this as a filmmaker, Steven Spielberg starting out making Super 8 movies in his backyard. And, you want to be a filmmaker when you grow up or when you get older, good. Make films on your iPad, on your iPhone. Just make films.
Well, Lee, originally I did actually train as an actor. But unfortunately, though, my lecturers or coaches suggested I should quit. They said that I brought the spirit of Puss in Boots to Macbeth. So ended my short-lived acting career.
That's funny. That's really funny. But see, I don't agree with that because it's funny. But I think that because people will say awful things to you if you're an artist, they say horrible things to you. You know, they do. And you have to, if you really see, if you'd really wanted to be an actor, Laurie, you would have done it.
Yeah, it
No
wasn't
matter
really my
what they
fault.
said to you.
The rest of the male cast, they got all the best costumes. I had like green tights. It looked like I was in a Mel Brooks film compared to everyone else, you know. So of course I brought the spirit of Puss in Boots to Macbeth, you know.
Oh my
Never mind.
God. My first stage play when I was 7 was Peter and the Wolf. And I played the bird, Misha or something. It's an operetta. And I played the bird and I wore a yellow onesie, we call it, which is like pajamas, basically, yellow pajamas that your hands, your feet, it goes up to here. And then you wear a bird head that, you know, your mother made you with chicken feathers dyed yellow. And that was my first. So it was kind of similar to your Puss in Boots. Yeah.
Thanks, Lee. That's reassuring.
But I don't think people should. I don't think people should take no from one school play. I don't think. Hey, I auditioned for my senior class play and I didn't get cast. And 2 years later, I was starring in movies.
They had me for 2 years before they told me that. They tried for 2 years to make me watchable. But apart from my one exception, though, you're right. You know, don't take no for an answer.
Don't take no for an answer. I mean, like now, if somebody said to you, Larry, you should not be making films, you would just laugh at them. You'd be like, "What? Are you crazy?"
I'd consider their point of view, but you know, I think I have to reconcile.
I've had people say such horrible things to me, and you will throughout your career. People will say awful things, and people will say wonderful things. So you have to decide which you're going to carry with you.
Well, any critics of yours, Lee, can just go to hell because you're fantastic anyway.
Well, thank you. Thanks very much. Yeah, but I certainly.
So you mentioned one of your mentors, and you know how it is in a career like ours. We have many mentors, you know, people that give us advice. But of course, there is one of particular note, and
yeah.
I know how many times you've had to tell this story before.
Lots. And it's fine. I don't get tired of it.
But it is so spectacular. Please tell us about some of the most important mentors in your life.
Well, without a doubt, the most important mentor in my life was Steve McQueen. And I'm not talking about the wonderful director. I'm talking about the legendary actor. I always have to say that now because there's this brilliant director who has the same name as my mentor, whom I would like to work with. I'm just putting it out there in the universe. But so my mentor was the legendary actor, Steve McQueen, for those people who remember him and know who he was. And I think he's still iconic, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, he is almost of a generation of heroes in terms of actors, you know, a man's man, as we might say. Although, you know, and a kind of actor, I imagine that is sorely missed as well.
Yeah, he's very missed. Yeah, he didn't get enough time on the planet. He died. He was 50, and so I was a very young actress, and I had not done a film yet. I hadn't even done really a TV show yet. I was under a contract. In the golden age of Hollywood, there was all the contract players. Everybody you've ever heard of was a contract player. They were under contract, MGM or Fox or whatever. And then that all went away. And then years and years later, decades later, some of the studios, Universal and Fox and Screen Gems and Columbia, I forget how many of them, 5 or 6 of the remaining studios decided to create a new contract player system, which was really to their advantage, not really much to ours. but nevertheless, it was prestigious. And I had already screen tested for a movie that Steve McQueen was producing through his company, Solar Productions. I'd already had like 4 or 5 different auditions for it in the culling process, right? Because I'd never done anything really. I'd done a couple of commercials. I was a model. I was studying acting, and I didn't even have a theatrical agent. It was all just, again, a strange opportunity. And my commercial agent called me one day, and because I did a couple commercials, and he said, "There's this film I think you ought to audition for." I said, "No, I don't want to audition for a film. I'm not ready to audition for a film. I'm studying, I'm preparing, I'm not ready." And he kept calling me over a period of a couple of weeks, and he was like, "If you don't do this audition, you really lost it. You need to do it." And he said, "You're so right for it." So I did. I auditioned for it 4 or 5 times, like I said. Started with 500 actresses, and then it, over a period of time, got narrowed down to, I think, 4 or 5. One of whom was a friend of mine. And so it's a long story. I could write a book about it, really. I probably should. But about the third audition, when I got called in on a Saturday morning, and I lived about 10 minutes away from the studio, from the offices of Solar. And I got called in on a Saturday morning, and I was out digging in the dirt. I was like sweaty and dirty. And they said, "We need you to come over now." And I said, "Oh, okay. Let me just take a quick shower." He said, No, you have to come now. You have to be here in 10 minutes. I'm like, but I said, "Hair is greasy. I'm at dirt under my feet. This doesn't matter." And I thought, it doesn't matter, because I'm probably just going to go over. Remember, this is in the days when we didn't have the internet. So nobody could send you your sides, which is the pages of the script, just for people who might not know, pages of the script that you study, and then you do the audition from those pages, right? So you had to actually get in your car, and you had to drive over to wherever the offices were, pick up the sides, which were printed out, and then drive home, right? So I thought, well, okay, I won't see anybody at Saturday morning, and I'll just rush into the front office, and I'll just pick up those sides, because they usually left them on the reception desk, right? And I'll just rush out, right? So I drive over to the studio as fast as I can, and I get there, and I run into the office, right? And I see Steve McQueen, and he's like,
Wow.
right there, right? And I was like,
can I just ask, did you not swoon? I mean, you're
no,
a
I
young
didn't.
lady, and he's like one of the the most exciting.
He was an old man to me, because I was 19, 20. He was actually the same age as my parents. So to me, I mean, yeah, of course he was exceptionally good looking, but that would have been like, ew, saying my father was good looking. Ew, it was.
He wasn't my age, was he, Lee? I mean, not at that time, right? Because I like to think actresses might idolize me at a young age still.
And they probably do, yeah. I'd say that maybe the 19-year-olds probably don't, but maybe the 25-year-olds. So, and besides,
there's wiggle room then.
and you're taken, so we won't go there.
Yeah, well, I suppose that's true.
Yeah, it's true. So
what did Steve teach you then?
Well, everything really. I didn't have the role still. I mean, he wanted me to talk to him, and because he was big on interaction, and he said, "Oh, come back and talk to me. Come back to my office." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And because I was still very self-conscious about the fact that I'd been gardening, right? And I think he actually liked it that I was not all done up and dolled up. And so we talked for 2-3 hours, and just, it was amazing, because here he was, the biggest movie star in the world at the time. And here I was, nobody from nowhere. But we talked for 2-3 hours, and we had so much in common. It was so interesting. We both rode motorcycles. We both liked fast cars. We both had difficult childhoods in different ways, but difficult. And it was just a really soulful kind of conversation. And anyway, and then I left and I went back and did my third, fourth, I don't know, fifth audition or something, right? And then I made that cut, and then I got to the screen test, which there was 5 of us, and then got the job. And then he took me under his wing, and he mentored me, and I really think it was, you meet these people in your life, and some of them are just like the sun, and they do so much for you, just by simple words, or giving you your first film, or whatever, and they just eternally shine upon you from that point on.
Of course. I mean, he was an extraordinary artist, but I think
He was.
it shows just what an extraordinary person he was, though, that he could make such a profound enhancement and difference to your own career as well. And also, it's a testimony to yourself as well that you beat so much competition,
It was a
for
lot.
that role.
It was a lot, but he taught me just a lot. I mean, we used to work out in the mornings together, and he would, I mean, just this morning when I was working out, I was doing some of the things he taught me all those years ago, because they work. And he had, his trainer was Bruce Lee. And so he would have his training session with Bruce Lee, and then he would teach me what Bruce Lee had taught him. And I didn't even know that until I was being interviewed for a biography on Steve several years ago. I'm in several books about him. And I said, well, yeah, he had this Chinese trainer, and I told the story, how we used to work out. And they said, do you know what his name was? I said, no. And they said it was Bruce Lee. So wow. I never knew that, because Steve never said his name. He was just like, oh, let me show you what, and we didn't call them trainers in those days. I think it was called the fitness expert or something like that, right? And he would show me, and we'd do it, and that was it, and I'd go home. And sometimes his kids would be there. It was just, and then he taught me just all kinds of things about money and longevity. See, he would have had an even longer career, but he died. And he would have had, but he taught me a lot about longevity. He taught me how to be on a set and not be a total, pain. And just a lot. He taught me a lot about how to work a camera. I mean, how to be in front of a camera. Because, granted, I had taken a lot of classes, so it's pretty well schooled. But there's nothing like having the best movie star in the world tell you about, don't do this with the camera, don't do that with the, do this, do that. It's a pretty good teacher. So he was
you earned that as well, though. That you earned that opportunity by virtue of your own talent and the time you'd spent and developing that.
Yeah, thank you. And he knew that. He absolutely knew that. I mean, there's interviews on the internet with him about me from the time, and he says things kind of interesting like that. Not in those exact words, but like that. And people send me things that he said about me, and it's really, it was really something. I wish he was still with us. Wish he'd had more time.
Can I ask about some of your earliest films? And because I was struck by some of the personalities that you've worked with. For example, 2 particular projects come to mind, one of which has become a cult film, recently restored, I think, for re-release coming up quite soon.
What?
This particular film being Necromancy. But you've also, so on that project, you worked with Orson Welles. Mm-hmm. And another early film, you also worked with Michael Douglas as well. And hopefully I think you had a chance to meet his dad as well, who's a hero of mine. So can you tell me a little bit about those projects where you worked with Orson Welles and Michael Douglas, 2 different films, of course?
Well, going back to Steve, the film that he cast me in, that his company produced, um, which was called Adam at 6 a.m. After he cast me, and it was a strange reversal because this so rarely happens that the females are cast first. It happens more now than it happened, say, prior to 10 years ago, right? But then it just didn't happen. And I was cast first, and then I had to then go screen test with the young actors who were being considered, one of whom was Michael Douglas, who was basically known at that time as Kirk's son. And even though he had done 2 other features and got a lot of attention because he was Kirk's son, and he was also extraordinarily gifted and extremely handsome. They ended up hiring Michael, and Michael and I did that film together. And it was a great experience. It was not a hit film, but it was a great experience. And the fact that I had been knighted by Steve McQueen was opened a lot of doors for me, and I was able to do a lot of films and still working. And so that was the film that I did with Michael. I also did a film with Kirk, and called I'm just looking at my bulletin board because I actually have a recent note from Kirk on my bulletin board that he wrote me about 3 months before he passed at 102. So I did a film with Kirk called Eddie Macon's Run. And in the, I think it was in the 80s. I think it was in the 80s, maybe the 90s, but I think in the 80s. And that was interesting because then I had worked with son and then father. And they were very much alike in their work ethics and their work style, and that was fascinating. And of course, Kirk knew I had worked with Michael, so he was like, "Yeah, tell me what it was like to work with Michael."
Well,
sure.
What a strange position to be in.
It was like, okay, he was great. He was wonderful. It was a long time ago, but he was great. And then Orson, you brought up the film Necromancy, which has, as I mentioned to you in an email, a lot of different titles. But that was a film that I kind of stumbled into and stumbled out of. But I mean, when we finished, because they nearly killed me. And, it was a different time. Actors didn't have a lot of protection like we have now. They threw me into a muddy algae covered pond where I was supposed to have drowned, and I think I was face down, and I had to be there until they finished the shot. I mean, there was no concern for my safety or my well-being or anything. That would never happen today. Ever.
That's
never
crazy.
happened.
Yeah.
It was crazy. I was soaking wet and had green algae dripping off me, real algae, not like fake algae. I'm amazed I survived that film. But the treasure in my memory from that film, of course, is Orson Welles. And I hope that everybody remembers Orson Welles, because if they don't, then they need to go back and study film history, because he is truly
if they haven't, then their careers are already doomed. This video won't help them, they're just,
no, it won't help them at all.
Walk into the sea now, it's
Yes, yeah, you need to leave, because you didn't bother learning anything about the history of the industry. But so Orson Welles, Hello Citizen Kane, Magnificent Ambersons, just letting people know, was in many ways much larger than life. And when I worked with him, he was, already an older man. He was extremely heavy, and he was very spoiled. So the rest of us were young, and it was a great cast, strangely enough, a great cast. Pamela Franklin.
Yeah, a notable actress from Legend of Hell House. and
Yes,
the Innocents as well. She played the little girl in the
that was
Innocents.
her. That was her,
Yeah.
and also the prime of Miss Jean Brodie.
Mm-hmm.
She was the girl in that with Maggie Smith. Anyway, Pamela and Harvey Jason, who became her husband, she met him on that film. Lisa James, Susan Bernard, Michael Ontkeen, and Orson. So there's about 5 or 6 of us young witches in the coven. And Orson was the, what do you call it? A male witch. Warlock.
The technical term is witch daddy.
That would have been kind of appropriate. Warlock. He was the warlock, and we were raising somebody from the dead. I don't know. It's like
Orson's career was at a difficult time for him. He was trying to reconcile his place in the industry and his legacy and what he was doing. I mean,
and this didn't do it. So.
Yeah. Was he in some way, although he is and was magnificent, his state at that time, was it discouraging or encouraging to you as an artist?
I never thought about it. I was a kid, it never, I knew Orson Welles from film history because I had studied film history. And I never thought about that because he was treated like the crown prince. And he, the rest of us we called our little horrible little dressing rooms coffins. And he had, of course, the 50-foot gorgeous trailer, and he was really treated well. And they would come out and throw, brown bag lunches at us with a soggy tuna fish sandwich and a can of Coca-Cola and a rotten apple. I mean, really, I'm not even exaggerating. We would have that equivalent of that every day. They would just throw like 5 or 6 bag lunches at here, okay. We'd, catch our lunches. It was insane. And then with Orson, though, we would be kind of up on a little hill and we'd be observing Orson's chef come out of the chef's trailer, and they would set up, the fine cutlery and the fine linens, and then they would usually cook something outside as well on the grill for Orson, and then bring him out, here's your selection of wines for the day, Mr. Welles. And we would be thinking, wow, my Coca-Cola is even flat and warm, and he's getting but it was an adventure. We were young, and it was, nobody was harsh, had harsh feelings about Orson. It was just like, someday we'll be there. Someday we'll get to that level. And most of us actually did. And the ones that kept going, kept acting, did. And everybody in that cast, it was amazing, was amazingly successful later in life.
Well, I want to assure you that if we ever have the privilege of your presence on a Hex Studios film, that you'll have a wonderful trailer and everyone else will be eating tuna sandwiches outside in the cold. But hopefully I can be a guest again in your trailer. That would be a pleasure.
I would invite everybody in. That's who I am. Like,
not
oh
everyone.
my God, it's cold out there. No, well, maybe not everybody. Just you.
We have a class system in Great Britain.
Of course, just you and Sarah, and that would be it.
Well, Lady Lee as well, I think.
Well, yes, I mean that, of course.
The Queen,
the Queen would be invited first, you see, and then she could bring her entourage.
Yes.
With her. Yes, definitely. But so that's and Orson was great. There's a lot of photographs on the internet with Orson and me that are really kind of funny, but one of them is we're standing over an open grave, and he's holding a gigantic book. And I'm looking very serious off in the distance, and he's reading from this book. And people always say, oh, is he reading the Bible? I'm like, no, it's about witchcraft, about raising people from the dead. That's what he's reading. So that's the book of Necromancy, which means raising people from the dead.
So following on from the theme of horror, there's another notable production you were in. And of course, I am focusing a little bit on genre-esque projects because you've worked on many wonderful films, and but this particular project is a horror film called Stranger in Our House, or Stranger In Our House, to say it more
Or
articulately.
Summer of Fear.
Or
There's two
Summer of
titles.
Fear. Yep.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Directed by Wes Craven. And that is a film that has recently been restored and has actually been re-released, as far as I understand, quite recently.
I didn't know that.
Yes. There's by a boutique specialist distributor, so that should be nice.
I'm glad to know that, because I think it's a really good film.
Oh yeah, you're fantastic in it. And
you saw it?
Oh yes, of course. And
Oh,
you're
great.
quite formidable as well.
Terrifying.
It's funny to see Linda Blair running about scared for a change. So
that's true.
What was that experience like? How did you get involved, and what was it like working with Wes Craven as well?
I loved Wes Craven. I miss him. He was, of course, he was a genius. I mean, we all know that, unless, of course, you didn't study your film history, and then I'm sorry. But he was a genius, and he just was. He could have done any genre and been a genius, because he was just a great filmmaker. And he was, it's interesting. I was thinking about Wes this morning. I was thinking about the last time I saw Wes, which was at a screening of another horror film. I wasn't in it. He didn't do it. We just happened to be there for various reasons. And I saw him, and he was like, "Oh my God, how are you? What's happening?" And wow, you look really good. And it was just a funny conversation.
You've heard that a few times, Lee. You have a kind of
I'm grateful every time I tell you.
Quality about you, you know.
Oh gosh,
you've got a few fans at the Hex Studios office as well. We've all, yeah.
Oh, thanks.
We all appreciate your modeling pictures and.
Well, I don't look like that anymore. Nobody can maintain that.
You look fine, Lee. You look good.
Oh, thank you. Oh, okay, I didn't mean to like suck up compliments, but we had a great, funny conversation and talked about just life, and that's the last time I ever saw him, because he was gone, I think, within a year. But he was on the set. This was a very kind, for all the scary stuff he made. He was a gentleman. He was kind. He was thoughtful. He was very soft spoken and very sweet. I have to say, he was a sweet man, and I mean that as a great compliment, not as he certainly wasn't weak. He was a very strong guy, but he was just, there was a sweetness about him that drew you to him. And there's not a lot of, I don't think, men, with yourself excluded, of course, you are sweet, but there's not a lot of men, I don't think, who have that sweetness about them. And that, there's a lot of kind men, a lot of good men, but the sweetness is, to me, a quality that is uncommon in the man, and quite wonderful when you find it. And I always think of him as being sweet in the most highest compliment. That's who he was. And of course, he was incredibly skilled and gifted filmmaker. He knew film and cameras and angles and lenses and everything, just backwards and forwards. He was consummate filmmaker. So he was great, because there's a scene in that film that was my idea, and it was great, because I would say I had this idea, and he'd go, no, something else, and then I would come up with some ideas, and he'd say, oh yeah, let's do that. And it was like such a generous collaborative effort that I hadn't really experienced much at that point. So, I was pretty young still, and I was playing 3 different characters. So it was up to me to invent these characters, and they weren't really on the page. And there was a book. In fact, I have the book. I have the book in my library. I'm looking for it. I don't know where it is right now, but it was based on a book and then made into a screenplay. And so I had this idea one day, there's a scene in the film where that is so, even to me, scary. And it was half my idea and half Wes's idea, where the witch is just going bonkers, and she breaks through a door and comes out. I love this scene so much, and I hardly like anything I ever do. But she comes out of the door and she's like, I don't want to do it here. And there's all this.
It's looking good though.
There's all this smoke, right? That is there, bee smoke, and so in the script it was written, she's pounding on the door, and I was wearing my own ring, and the door, which was supposed to be just fake wood, film wood, it didn't break. And instead it caught on my ring, and my ring, which I still have and still wear, has this dent in it from Summer of Fear. Strange. I won't get it fixed because it's like a fun memory, but the door wouldn't break. And so I said, can we do it this way, where, the door blows and then I come out and it's like Dracula. And he said, oh yeah, let's do that. So when you look at that scene, which is, I don't know how far into the film that is, pretty far. When you look at that, you'll go, oh my gosh, half of that was Lee's idea. Half of it was, of course, Wes's very fine direction. So I was very pleased by that. He was like that. He would listen to your ideas. And if you didn't like them, he wouldn't do them. And he was polite about it. But if you liked them, he'd do them.
I think that's wonderful. And in my opinion, as well as a filmmaker, I think being open to, in fact, it's not even actually a case of being open to collaboration, but it's understanding the importance of collaboration with your fellow artists and working together to tell the best story that you can. I've never been very comfortable with the kind of auteur theory and the principal artist stuff and things like that. Yes, some directors certainly have an artistic vision or perspective that can carry from one project to another, but
right.
I feel
right.
I just, we know being on set that so many people contribute so many things to what we see in front of camera. That one person just doesn't get to walk away with the prize and say, that was me,
Yeah, it was wonderful that he was like that. I would have loved to have worked with him again, but I didn't get to. But I have been fortunate. And then I have worked since then with people who are collaborative and view you as somebody who maybe has something more to add other than just your performance, which is certainly large in itself. But it is great when you do have an idea, even if the person says no, and they know, usually they know what's going to work, what's not. Even if they say no, the fact that they're willing to listen to the idea and actually consider it, and then it's up to them. They say yes or they say no. I mean, that's a gift, because it is, like you said, everybody it's so different on a film set than, say, in a stage play, which is also a certain type of collaboration. But I've done many more films than I have stage plays in a long time, actually, even though I started, Peter and the Wolf. But it is a collaboration. Everybody collaborates. There isn't anybody that doesn't collaborate on a film set in some way.
I mean, that guy that brings you an espresso at 3 a.m. is far more useful than a director,
Oh my God, so much more.
So, talking about films and directors, I have to ask you this broad and irritating type of question.
Which is irritating, good.
Which is, do you have any particular favorite films or directors that you've worked with? Is there one film or one director that especially comes to mind? Of course there's not, but I have to ask you that silly question anyway.
I have 2 dogs. And if you ask me, which is my favorite dog, I could not answer that question, because I love them both so much, and I love them in different ways because they are different from one another. So I don't think I can answer that question. It's just not, I mean, so a few come to mind, but does one? No, one does not come to mind. My pat cliched answer is the next one.
Yeah, but that could be me. And then where will you
It could
be,
be.
Lee?
And
Yeah.
then what do we do? Oh my God,
Yeah.
that I would be blessed. I would be very blessed to play, I don't know, a warrior queen or another type of witch or,
You would be fantastic. And,
yeah, it'd be fun.
directors are a bit like dogs. We wander about on all fours, get confused easily, and we don't have as good a sense of smell as dogs, but we try to compensate in other ways.
Definitely not. And you have much better manners, usually, not always, but you have much better manners than my dogs do. That's for sure.
You've touched on this already, Lee, and you might not feel there's anything more to add, but it's really whether there's any particular advice you could give to new actors. Of course, the media landscape is forever changing, and personally, I
So
feel
different now.
sure. I feel like actors at the moment, aspiring actors, are so influenced by internet celebrity and instant gratification and emulation of what they see in pop culture rather than, the kind of stuff you were talking about. But I don't know. What advice would you give to these idiots, Lee? What would you say?
Well, I would not call them idiots, first of all.
I'm a producer, I'm a heartless man.
You're a heartless, cold man. It's just really
cold,
intimidating.
handsome, strange, alternative sex symbol sort of man. But yes, I understand.
That's funny. Poor
It's not
lady.
that funny, Lee, please.
But you do always wear a nice tie and a nice jacket. I like that. It's nice to see somebody actually dress.
I was trying to impress you, Lee.
Well, you did for sure. So advice, I've given some. I think that the opportunities today are just grand. There's, oh my God, so different from when I was a kid actor, and you had 3 networks in America and 50 casting directors and who cast both film and TV. And then you had a lot of films that were being done. But there's nothing like now when you have over 500 scripted shows. I mean, everybody should be working every day of their lives. How can you even cast that many? And I know in America alone, there are 300 casting directors. The opportunities are just immense. I can't even fathom what it would be like to be a young actor now and have all those wonderful, glorious opportunities where you can make your own content. You can create your own web series and it can end up being picked up by Netflix, which has happened. And you just have so many opportunities, and women have so many more opportunities than there were. I was trying to be a filmmaker 30 something years ago, and that was tough. It was very tough because the opportunities were not there for women that there are now. But both women and men and everybody in between, there's so many opportunities now. Don't emulate what you see on the internet, and just because somebody's a big influencer and has X million gajillion followers, and it doesn't mean that they're talented in a traditional way. They're talented another way. They're brilliant at promotion. But you want to be a real actor, then you have to do things that real actors do, which is you have to start and you have to start from scratch, and you have to study and you have to love it, because you're going to get rejected over and over and over and over and over. And you have to really be able to stand that and be able to confront that, because it's going to happen. And but the fact that you can create your own content with your phone in your cramped living room with your 5 roommates, my gosh, we had Super 8 cameras, and then we had video cameras, and it just wasn't as simple as it is now. It's so simple now. Just create your own content and make it good, and study film history. People may think that film history doesn't matter. Oh, it matters. It definitely matters. And I would say take a film history course. Study the history of television, study the history of stage. I have taught people, and mainly in the UK, not here. And I always go back to when were the first storytellers, because that's what we are. Whether we are writers or directors or auteurs or producers or hairdressers, costumers, we're all storytellers. We all put together a component of the story that we're telling, whether it's stage, TV, or film. And I always say, who are the first storytellers? And people will say, oh, Cecil B. DeMille. No, I mean, who are the first storytellers? And the first storytellers were those cavemen who used to paint images on walls and tell stories of the hunt around the fire, and put on the bear skin and dance. And those were the first storytellers. And that's the heritage that we
Sure.
all have. And I think people need to understand that history matters, and it matters a lot.
Most of them are actually working as the crew on Hex Studios Productions right now, traipsing along in the cold.
Who the historians?
Oh, the cavemen, yeah. But they're very good at lifting wooden blocks, in case any of them are watching. They're wonderful at that. Not much else, but they're wonderful at that.
Oh, no. Well, I'm sure they're great at many things.
No, really, Lee. No.
Oh, no, really not. Okay, well, there you go.
Do you, in terms of, I can't agree more with the storyteller aspect, because I think the big mistake that many aspiring actors I know seem to make is that they see their role as entertainer first and foremost, rather than storyteller. Something I think, again, to do with emulative pop culture, YouTube, internet, and things, where everyone's behaving like they're a presenter instead of a storyteller.
Yes. Yeah. TikTok and
exactly. How do you feel for actors in terms of studying the methods of Strasberg or Adler or Meisner are things they should look at all? In Britain, those types of screen acting are less common, because these are American schools of acting.
With good reason. Less common. That was just my little sarcastic comment. I think that you need to, I think that, see, it's different here, because other than if you go to university here and you major, your major is in theater, film, dance, whatever, then you make your own way. It's a bit different there, because you have the really wonderful schools there, all the drama schools. And I studied with privately, because that's how I had to do it, because I was already a working actress in America. So I lived there, but I flew back and forth a lot to work, so I could pay to live there, and so I could afford it. And so my teacher there was a retired professor who had gone into private teaching. So I studied with her. But I think that there, if you get into one of the really wonderful drama schools, that's a gift. I mean, that's fantastic, because wonderful actors come out of those schools. Here it's different, because unless you are, and a lot of people are not, some people are, it's more common than it used to be, but unless you are majoring in drama at Yale or Harvard or one of the smaller but very fine schools, then you are on your own. And I was on my own. I did go to college very briefly. I was asked to leave, and that's another story. And it's not a particularly interesting story, not salacious. It's just what happened. But So you're on your own here. You have to seek out teachers. So, Strasberg, of course, is no longer with us. There are people who teach his method. And I suppose that works for some people. I'm not a fan, not a
Hmm.
fan. And I actually, I was doing a piece for a director here at the Strasberg Institute when Strasberg was still alive. We were doing the Texas trilogy, which is a famous trilogy of plays. And Strasberg was there, and we actually had quite an argument. And
Wow.
yeah, it was interesting on the stage in front of 300 people. And because he tried to take credit for what I was doing, and because he was just gave me just he came up on stage after we did the performance, and he gave me just glowing compliments, and then he assumed that I was studying there, which I wasn't and never did, and so took credit basically from my performance. And then I had to say to him in front of 300 people, I don't study here. And and he was like, but you have. No, I never have. In fact, I'm a working professional. I did this as a favor to the director, and he, oh man, we had an argument right there.
Wow.
And like 300 people were like, well, hissing me, and it was really awful. Anyway, that was my experience. I have friends who studied with Strasberg and just thinks he, hung the moon, and that he's just the best. And fine, that's fine. If they want to study that technique, more power to them. I personally like Stella Adler's technique. I didn't do her technique because
Hmm.
I studied in London, and then the people I studied with here were not Adler people. But although I have read her books and really like her techniques, and did study with people who had studied with her or taught for her, whatever. But I think that you need to find what works for you. If you're lucky enough to be in the UK and you're lucky enough to be in one of the great drama schools, you've got it made. I think as a student, I don't know if you're going to make it as a career, but you've got it made as a student, and just absorb every moment of that because you're really fortunate. And if you're studying elsewhere, like I also did, then you have to experiment. I went from teacher to teacher to teacher, and I took from each one and took what I wanted and then moved on. And the one I studied with the longest, well, his name was Milton Katselis, but I was already a working actress. And he's no longer with us, but I know a ton of successful actors who studied there, and we're all kind of, alumni. We're all friends, and so he was a wonderful teacher. But he taught a lot of the Adler method, and he also taught his own method because he also was a film director, so he had that viewpoint, which I find to be very helpful. So I think you just need to find whatever method works for you. If it's Strasberg, so be it. And although some of the people I've worked with who studied Strasberg took the method a little too far, and we ended up waiting on set for them for 30 minutes while they would run around the block to get out of breath. And it was like, why don't you just act like you're out of breath? And, famous, Dustin Hoffman
Oh, and
did
the
a
Lawrence
film.
Olivier
Yes,
exchange.
that,
Yes,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Why don't you just blah, blah, because it's different. The techniques, even though they have merged a lot in more recent years, right? But the techniques, because I've studied both techniques and have taught both, the techniques have merged much more than they were. But traditionally, American technique comes from the inside
Yeah.
out, and traditionally, the British technique comes from the outside in. And that's how I define it. People may
No, I
argue
think
with me.
that's quite right. Yeah, I mean that's how it felt even when I was training in acting as well. So I have to ask you another inane question, Lee, which is
Oh, I like inane questions. They're much easier to answer.
so is there a particular role or project that you would just love to be doing soon,
You mean
next? Your
you mean
perfect
other
character, or your
my
perfect kind
perfect
of movie?
character? You know, well, I would really like to play a queen, and it's not an opportunity that a lot of Americans get. I would like to play a queen, and I would like to play a warrior queen. In olden times. Hint, hint.
I'll do my best.
Yeah, and and I would really like to play a witch again, because I think that would be more interesting at this age to play a witch than it was when I was younger. I think I have more to bring to it, and I would like to do that, and I would like, it was really fun to play the politician in Kids versus Monsters. It was really fun to do that. The world's last politician, because all the rest were dead, and that was really fun. But I would like to play a serious politician. I mean, I have played politicians, but I haven't done that enough, I don't guess, because I don't have it. I haven't. I still have a desire, to do that. So I would like to play the president of the United States. It's been done by other women, but I would like to bring my own take to that. And let's see what else. Oh, I really would like to play, and I keep saying this, and somebody's going to cast me as this. I want to play a female mob boss. I
You would
want
be
to do that.
fantastic in that role.
Thank you. I would really like to do that, and so I guess I'd like to play women of power. That's what I'd like to play, and women who are not necessarily have power in the world or in culture or society, but although I want to do more of that, but women who are complex. I find that some of the roles that I am offered are really just there's no complexity. I mean, by this time of life, you're pretty complex, and you have seen a lot, and you have done a lot, and you have a lot to bring to a role, and much more so than when you're young and you're still starting out in life. I mean, by this time, you have a thing or two, and I would like to have a role that does that. I did a role about a year ago that was sort of like that. This was a woman of great secrets, which I really liked. I liked playing a woman of great secrets, and then in the very end of the film, you find out what the secret is, and it's a heartbreaking secret. But she carries that with her, and I like that. I like that. I like playing people who have secrets, because everybody has secrets.
Well, yeah. I mean, firstly, I think you have like such presence from that indomitable nature of yours, Lee, that playing a warrior queen or a politician, or exuding a sense of authority and power is something that you have, even in their interview. So, it's quite easy to imagine that working very well on film or stage. And also, you talk about the character with the secret that was so compelling for the narrative. Having the chance to play characters that are multifaceted,
Yes.
in terms of the personality and also the way that the plot weaves around them, that is the most beautiful kind of performance. We get that much more in theatre than we do in film scripts, but it'd be good to see more of that in film.
Yeah, and you're starting to see a lot more of that in television, which is interesting.
It's becoming our saving grace almost.
Yeah, yes. Thank goodness. Although I have to say I still prefer film. I just do. I like the big screen. That's what I like. And I've done an awful lot on the small screen, tremendous amount. But really, my first love has always been the big screen, because it's so much larger than life, and you get to take it in. You get to experience it more than something you watch on your TV. I watched a film last night. Really, it was a wonderful film. News of the World, Tom Hanks, and this just wonderful young girl. I don't know how old she is, but she's young. and she barely speaks in the film. And she's just tremendous. But I had to watch it because I'm watching all these Oscar films right now so I can vote. And I had to watch it on, my home TV. And, I know I lost a lot, but I still love the film. But because we can't see films right now on the big screen. Now we're
Right.
all stuck at home, either streaming them or, if you're lucky to have a big screen TV, which I do, but it's not as big as a movie theater screen. So I just always have been in love with, since I was a small child, really in love with people who are 50 foot tall on a big screen. I just think it's divine.
No, you're right. I think it's important to try and maintain and cultivate the romance of cinema as well. We've seen it in some ways arguably undermined by the
Oh yeah,
fixation of the pop culture with, big studio action films, and we're losing all those other films which are in some ways manifesting themselves on streaming platforms instead of cinema. But if we don't protect or find a way for them to have a life on the big screen as well, then we're going to lose a lot of artists who would have been influenced and inspired to get involved for that reason, like
that's
yourself.
very
Yeah.
true. And not just well, you won't lose me because I'll just do TV or I'll do a
Yeah.
web series or whatever. I'll direct on Zoom. But I think that going back to the film I watched last night, just because it's so fresh in my mind, I was watching it and the production design was just beautiful. And I've done a lot of Westerns. I love Westerns. It's one of my favorite genres. This was a Western. And you don't see them, often enough, I don't think, because they really are, particularly in America, very, very special. And I think should be treated as a national treasure because they really are good and evil, black and white, of not no gray. And I think that they're very important and we should have more of them. But when you talk about losing great artists, yeah, you can do great costuming and great production design and great lighting and so forth for a smaller screen. You can do it, but it doesn't have the same effect as. And I was very conscious of that when I was watching this film last night because it was definitely made for the big screen, and the production design was so brilliant. And I thought, wow, that production design is like Westerns I've done, where you can smell the dirt and the sweat, and it just was so in your face beautiful. And we would lose a lot of people like that because it doesn't have the same effect on a small screen. It doesn't have the same effect if you're watching on your iPhone. I am very guilty of watching things on my iPhone and on my iPad and on my computer, whatever. I am guilty of that, and I will keep doing it. But if I have the choice of seeing a film in a theater in the dark with other people, that's where I'm going to be. And I'm just hoping that cinema in the theater actually survives this entire time. There are so many challenges, like you said, even before COVID. We were challenged by who goes to the theater anymore.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a real challenge to try and reconcile the sustainability of cinema arts or cinematic arts in the next 10, 15 years.
Me too.
And you make a good
Yeah.
point even with the Westerns, because if you think about it, what director shoots a big anamorphic shot of a landscape when a guy is like a little dot to create a sense of expansive emptiness when the screen is going to be 22 inches?
Yeah.
They don't. They shoot a tighter
No, they
shot.
don't.
And so the whole visual language changes in art as well because
It's
of
true.
cinema not being used.
That's a good point. And I noticed last night when I was watching this, they had some beautiful, huge, gigantic Sergio Leone shots, cattle and little tiny dots. And I thought, did they shoot that, or is that computer generated? And I don't actually know. I really don't know. It was hard to tell because I was watching it on an average size television. So I don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 or 15 years with the whole industry. I think, people like yourself can keep it alive and can keep making films. And, no matter where the distribution is, you can always think in the back of your mind, we're making this for a big screen, even though it will end up maybe on a small screen. But I think people like yourself will keep it alive. You're young, and we
Lee,
need people like you.
You're counting on me. I mean, I've got my whiskey bottle and empty revolver that I'm spinning the chambers for. You'll hopefully have a better bet than me. I mean,
no, it's the filmmakers, that
I'm like
will
Tom
keep
Paxton
things
and Aliens. I'm like, game over, man. We're screwed.
It's not over. It's not over until it's over. And as long as there are young people, okay, younger, whatever, going to film school and learning how to direct and produce and write, and I think we'll be okay.
Not to worry, Leah. My generation will destroy the planet for them. So we're punishing them for their lack of cinematic appreciation by making them live in a dystopian wasteland where they have to wear bin liners and
that's right.
eat, rats or
just
something.
Spray a lot of pesticide out there, just like
yeah.
give them plastic food.
It'll be like, maybe if you all appreciated Sergio Leone and widescreen cinemas, then you wouldn't have to eat two-headed rats. But there you go. That's life. If I come to my final question, Lee.
Okay, good.
You'll
what
be
is
glad
it?
to
I'm
know
dying to know.
You've almost escaped. So I have to ask if you have, given the challenging circumstances right now, this might be a difficult question to answer, but if you have any projects in development or anything that you're looking to develop or anything exciting on the horizon, apart from an escape from COVID restrictions.
Yeah, I'd just like to get out of my house. That'd be really nice. Although I do get out of the house. Just I don't see anybody when I get out of the house because there's like nobody. I walk my dogs and I feel like it's the apocalypse has already happened and there's nobody left but me and my dogs. So it's very strange. I have noticed a greater population of coyotes where I live. So I think that they'll be inheriting the earth. Okay, I digress. So yes, there were some projects that I was supposed to do that were scheduled, but then COVID. And so some of them I know what's happening and some of them I don't. So there's nothing really to say because I don't know what's going to be rescheduled and I don't know what's not. I know that I have been developing a web series and we'll see what happens with that. It's, I don't want to say much about it. No, I won't say anything about it, but it's fun. It's fun. So we'll see what happens with it. And then I have learned how to perform and direct on Zoom. And that has been really, really interesting because I'm very active in our union, SAG-AFTRA. I'm on the board. And I'm also on a number of committees. And the only committee that has really survived the COVID time, because we need to meet in person. It's very hard, whatever. But we do have one that has survived that is really gratifying. And that is our radio players committee. And we usually perform quarterly live. And we perform old time radio plays, but we do it in person. And we have audiences we have quite a following. But because of COVID, we can't perform live. So our chair had the idea that we should start performing on Zoom. And everybody went, oh, what? How what? And that was 6 weeks into COVID. And we've been performing ever since. And we had to learn. It was quite a huge learning curve because we don't just, come on the Zoom and perform. We have sound effects, we have music, and we have costume, we have hair, we have makeup, we have directors, we have editors. And I'm waiting. I'm going to look at the piece I directed tonight, the first rough cut. And and then we're archiving them. You can't see them yet. We've been archiving them this whole time because we're going to use them. We made a deal with the foundation wing of the union. That is the one that raises money and then gives money to actors in need. There are a lot of actors in need right now who, can't pay the rent, can't buy food, really basics. And because there's, a lot of middle class actors, and then there's a lot of people who don't make much money anyway, but they survive. But right now, very difficult because production revved up, and now production has been shut down again. So I'm thinking it's going to rev up again. So then we'll see. So we've been archiving these, and then the foundation, when we archive a certain number, they're going to take them and they're going to use them for fundraising. So at that point, it's very complex how we have to do, because we have to follow union rules and so forth, right? Which is fine. So then eventually people will be able to see these. And like I directed a piece from 1953, and that's the one I'm going to see the edit of tonight. And then I start we did it all, it was hard, all simultaneously. And then I start in a piece from 1950. And that was really fun because I didn't have to do much but show up, but it was fun. So eventually all these plays that we've been archiving will be available, and I'll just probably, I don't know, announce it on social media or something. People should follow me on social media if they want to keep track of that or anything else that I do, because I'm on every social media that there is that I want to be on. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook, I have a Facebook fan page, I'm on Instagram. What else is there that I do?
Well, let's see. Your Twitter, Facebook. Do you not do Twitter?
What's that?
Twitter?
What's that? Twitter. Yes, I'm on Twitter. I'm on Twitter. And I'm on Twitter. Yes. I'm on those. So people can just follow me, and then they'll get updates as to what I'm doing and when these plays will be released, and then what, other work I'm doing, real work, I call it, but actually the Zoom stuff is real work, a lot of work. So that is a very long answer to a very short question.
No, it shows that even with these difficult circumstances, there's plenty that artists can be doing. Of course, first priority is to survive under the difficult circumstances for those that are in economically deprived circumstances. But for those that can get by, then creatively, there's still so much that can be done until hopefully that sun rises once more.
I hope so, because there's a lot of people who are really having a hard time, financially struggling terribly, really terribly. So, and I know there as well. So hopefully this will be over soon. And because I think what people tend to forget is that pandemics go away. They go away, they end. The pandemic from 17, 18, there was no vaccinations. It went away.
Yeah,
and
quite right.
Took about a lot of people died, but it did go away.
Of course, one of the most terrifying pandemics is all the superhero films I have to suffer. And
oh, you're talking to the wrong person. I love superhero films.
No,
I do. I have to admit it. I do.
Do you have a favorite superhero?
Well, do I have a favorite? Thor. I guess it has to be Thor. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I look a little bit like Thor's fat brother-in-law, the one at the awkward, family Christmas that arrives, reluctantly because Thor's there,
He has to be there. He has to show up because his brother's there, or his brother-in-law's there.
It's just a horrible family drama.
Horrible. Do you have a favorite?
Maybe it sounds a bit cliche, really, but I suppose Batman, really, to an extent.
No, I love Batman.
But he's been done so many times, so you kind of have to pick a Batman, don't you?
Which Batman do you like the best?
I mean, it would be either Michael Keaton or the Christian Bale performance.
That's tough.
Yeah,
so different.
They are really.
I don't know. I mean,
the funny thing is that in Britain we never really had the same comic culture, with Marvel and DC. I mean, certainly they were sold in Britain, but they didn't. The kind of comics that we had were always, I digress. We had comics like The Dandy and the Beano. We had a comic about a cowboy, a giant cowboy that loved eating cow pies with horns in them.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I don't even know those.
Yeah, you guys had Marvel and DC. We had that,
Character. You're putting me on.
Or a schoolboy with 3 legs. That was another popular character.
On. Yeah. I'm not going to fall for this time. No, look, I am not.
I tell you. And the other most popular character was called Corky the cat, who spoke in Cockney rhyme. And
wait, is that real? Or are you just making this up?
Look, this is it. If you're brought up with that, then yeah.
No, I don't even know what that is. I mean, you're pulling my leg, just like the other stuff. Yeah,
no, I tell you, that is tragically true. It's eccentric British comic characters, yeah.
I used to love, when I was a kid, Wonder Woman. That was, oh my gosh, Wonder Woman was so exciting, and that a woman was a superhero. And there weren't that many then. There was like Superman and Batman, Wonder Woman.
I want you to know that I think you're a superwoman in any case. And I want to thank you.
Thank you, Batman. Batman's
yeah.
brother-in-law.
Slightly disappointing. Yeah, disappointing Batman. He's not available tonight. You've got me instead. Lee, I want to thank you so much for speaking to me this evening. And
it's been my pleasure.
Thank you so much for being a wonderful guest on Hex Talks.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Really, really fun. Always, and it's so nice to see you again. It's really great. And please give my best to the Lady D.
I'll pass in your regards to the whole Hex team.
Please do that as well.
I must bid you adieu.
Adieu. Au revoir. Goodbye. I'm leaving now. Bye.
Be sure to hit subscribe and the bell notification icon so you don't miss any of our future videos. Also, if you would like to support our channel and help us make more content, then check out the Patreon link in the video description below. Thank you and goodbye.